I promised to help him tomorrow. He never made it. Welcome to our channel where every story touches the heart. If this tale moved you, we'd love to know. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far these stories reach. And don't forget, a powerful news story is coming tomorrow, one that you won't want to miss. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay connected. This journey is better when we share it together. Thank you for being here. It all began on an ordinary afternoon in downtown Los Angeles. The kind of day where the sun casts long shadows, the sidewalks are warm beneath your feet, and life buzzes around you in a steady rhythm. I had just left the market, my arms filled with grocery bags, when I heard a small voice behind me. Urgent, yet polite. "Ma'am, you dropped this." Turning around, I saw a boy, no older than 9 years old, barefoot, maybe 4 feet 3 inches tall, with messy black hair and a torn gray shirt, running toward me with a crumpled paper bag in his hand. That was the first time I saw Liam. He handed me the bag, breathless but proud. "Your peanuts," he said, smiling. His eyes were wide, honest, and filled with a kind of joy that didn't belong to someone living on the streets. I hadn't even realized I'd dropped it, but somehow, in the middle of the noise and movement of the crowd, this young boy noticed and cared. There was a certain gentleness in him, a kind of light that can't be taught. His cheeks were smudged with dust, and his jeans were at least 2 sizes too big, held up with a piece of rope. But his manners, impeccable. I gave him a soft smile and reached into my wallet. "Here," I said, handing him a few dollars. He stared at the money, blinking in disbelief. "Really? For me?" I nodded. "You did something kind. That matters." He held the money like it was gold and ran off, waving back at me before disappearing around the corner, his laughter trailing behind. That moment stayed with me far longer than I expected. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Liam, the boy who gave back something small but left behind something big. That evening, as I watched my own son, Lucas, curled up on the couch with his iPad asking me what was for dinner, I couldn't help but compare. Lucas, also 9, had everything: warm meals, a cozy bed, a closet full of toys, while Liam had the streets. That night I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept drifting back to that brief encounter. Who was Liam? Did he have anyone? Where did he sleep? What did he eat when no one noticed him? And why did it matter so much to me? I tried to reason with myself. He's not my child, he's not my responsibility. But my heart told a different story. I kept seeing his eyes, those big, grateful eyes, and something inside me shifted. That bag of peanuts, barely worth $1, had somehow become the bridge between our two worlds. And deep down, I knew. This wasn't over. That little boy had entered my life for a reason. Whether I was ready or not, my story had just changed. The days passed, but Liam stayed in my thoughts. No matter how busy I got, laundry, meetings, dinner with Lucas, his face would appear in my mind like a quiet whisper I couldn't ignore. Every time I looked at my son, I thought of him. Both boys were the same age, yet their lives couldn't be more different. Lucas, 9 years old, lived in comfort. He had everything: a spacious bedroom, a packed lunchbox, even weekend trips to amusement parks. But something had changed in him lately. He'd become distant, cold even. He barely looked up from his tablet anymore. When I asked him questions, his replies were short, impatient. "Ugh, Mom, later. I'm busy." His tone was sharp. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just a phase. But the more I observed him, the more I realized. It wasn't just growing up. It was entitlement. One night, after tucking Lucas into his plush bed covered in superhero sheets, I stood at the doorway, watching him scroll mindlessly. I remembered how Liam had held that crumpled dollar bill like it was a treasure. And here was my own son, tossing expensive toys aside, bored. I couldn't help but wonder, had I failed him? My husband, David, didn't share my concerns. "You worry too much," he said over dinner. "He's a kid. All kids go through this." But it wasn't just that. I was seeing something bigger. Liam, with nothing, had gratitude. Lucas, with everything, had apathy. That contrast gnawed at me. I started waking up in the middle of the night, wondering if Liam had eaten, if he had a blanket, if someone had been kind to him today. It made me restless. I started packing an extra sandwich in my bag just in case I ran into him again. I kept loose bills in my coat pocket, hoping he'd be nearby. One weekend morning, I took Lucas out for ice cream, trying to reconnect. While we sat in the park, I saw a boy sitting alone on a bench, his back turned. He was peeling a banana slowly, savoring each bite. Something about him looked familiar. I got up, walked a little closer, and there he was. Liam, same messy hair, same too big jeans. But something had changed. His shoulders were slumped. He looked tired, older than his age, as if the city had stolen something from him overnight. I didn't say anything, I just stood there watching. My heart tightened. That's when I made a quiet decision. I couldn't change the world, but maybe, just maybe, I could change his. For days after seeing Liam again, I felt torn in ways I couldn't explain. It wasn't just compassion anymore. It was a sense of responsibility that clung to me like a second skin. I started keeping snacks in my car, small bills in every pocket, just in case I crossed paths with him again. But as my desire to help grew stronger, so did the resistance around me. It started at home. David, my husband, rolled his eyes when I brought Liam up at dinner. "You're letting this get into your head too much," he said. "He's not our child." He didn't say it with cruelty, just with that matter-of-fact tone that some people use when they're trying to stay practical, logical, safe. But my heart didn't feel safe. It felt cracked open. I confided in my best friend Karen, hoping for support. We met for coffee at our usual spot, and after the small talk faded, I told her everything. About Liam, about how I couldn't stop thinking about him, about how I wanted to help, but didn't know how. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. "You've got a lot on your plate already," she said. "Lucas needs you, your marriage needs you. And honestly, who knows where that boy came from? What if he's part of some scam? What if someone's using him?" I sat there in silence, the warmth of my latte cooling in my hands. I understood her worry. I really did. The world was dangerous. People got used, but I couldn't ignore the feeling in my chest, like a string had been tied between me and Liam the moment he returned that bag of peanuts. A string I couldn't untangle. Karen went on, more gently this time. "I'm just saying, be careful. You're the kind of person who gives too much, and sometimes people like you get hurt." I nodded, but deep down her words stung, because they weren't wrong, but they weren't right either. That night I stared at the ceiling long after everyone had gone to sleep. My mind replayed every encounter with Liam. His smile, his surprise when I handed him a few dollars, his tired eyes in the park. I thought about Lucas, sleeping peacefully down the hall, unaware of how harsh the world could be. And then I thought about Liam sleeping. Where? On a sidewalk, in an alley? Did he even have a blanket? The questions kept piling up until I sat up in bed, heart pounding with clarity. No, Liam wasn't my child, but he was a child. And maybe that was enough. Maybe caring didn't need permission. Maybe kindness didn't require blood ties. And so I made a decision. Tomorrow I would stop wondering and start doing. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I would begin. The next morning I woke up with a mission. The hesitation that had lingered in my chest was gone, replaced by determination. I didn't have a plan, not yet, but I had the will to try, and maybe that was enough to begin. After dropping Lucas off at school, I drove through the old neighborhood, eyes scanning every sidewalk, every corner of the open-air market. I even packed a small paper bag of kettle corn, Liam's favorite from what I'd observed, and tucked a soft blanket into my car, just in case. By mid-afternoon, I still hadn't found him. I sat at a bench near the train station, exhausted, frustrated, and filled with guilt I couldn't explain. Why had I waited? Why didn't I act sooner? Then, my phone buzzed. A message from Karen. "If you're really serious, try this," she'd typed. Below was a link to a community job board and another to a local social support center. My heart warmed. Maybe she understood more than she let on. I followed the links immediately. Most job postings had age requirements, 18 and up, but I kept searching. After a few dead ends, I finally found something. A center that worked with vulnerable teens, offering referrals and connections to housing, counseling, and work training. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The next day, I found Liam sitting by a street vendor near the farmer's market, legs swinging off the edge of the curb, chewing on a piece of sugarcane. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "You came back," he whispered. I crouched beside him, held out the kettle corn. "I told you I would." We sat there together, eating in silence for a few minutes. Then I told him about the center. "It's a place that helps kids like you. They don't care that you're young. They help anyway." He looked skeptical at first, but curiosity sparked in his eyes. I called the center while we sat there. The woman on the phone, Janet, was kind and calm. "Bring him in tomorrow," she said. "We'll take it from there." When I told Liam, his response was quiet. "What if they don't want me?" My heart broke. I placed my hand gently on his shoulder. "They will. I do. And I'll be there. With you." That night I barely slept, but it was a different kind of restlessness, one filled with hope, not fear. For the first time, there was a door open, even if just a crack, a path, no matter how narrow. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how Liam's story would unfold, but I knew this. He wouldn't be facing it alone anymore. The next morning felt different. The sky was gray, the air heavy with a strange stillness. I woke up early, packed a lunch, and folded the blanket carefully, ready to bring Liam to the support center just like we had planned. I even added a pair of Lucas's old sneakers, still in great shape, just a size too small for him now. They might fit Liam perfectly. I arrived at the market early. I waited at the corner where we always met, near the fruit vendor with the red umbrella. Time ticked by, 10 minutes, 20, an hour, no sign of him. I walked through the alleys, asked familiar vendors, "Have you seen the little boy? Around 9, scruffy hair, wears jeans too big?" Some shook their heads. One woman finally looked up with sad eyes and said, "You didn't hear?" My heart stopped. There was an accident early this morning. A kid got hit by a truck near the loading dock. Word is, it was him. I froze. "No," I whispered. "No, it can't be." The next hour was a blur. Police tape, hushed voices, questions no one could answer. I finally found a vendor who had seen him earlier. He said Liam had been chased by men who managed the other street kids. He didn't want to steal, the man told me. They said he was useless, told him to disappear. He ran, and the street didn't forgive hesitation. I sat on the curb, holding the bag of kettle corn in my lap like it could bring him back. My hands trembled, my vision blurred. I had promised him a new beginning, a safe place. But I was late, too late. That evening, I walked past Lucas's room. He was laughing at something on his screen, sprawled on his bed with no idea that someone his age had just lost his life. Alone and afraid. And I, the one person who saw him, who cared, hadn't been there when it mattered most. I kept thinking, what if I had come earlier? What if I'd insisted Liam stay with us that night? What if I hadn't waited for the right time? The truth is, I'll never know what could have happened. But I will always know what didn't. I didn't save him. I didn't protect him when he needed it most. I didn't show up fast enough. I stood at the kitchen window that night, staring into the dark street. One child safe in his bed, another, lost to the world. And in the silence, one thought echoed endlessly. It wasn't enough to care, you had to act. And I was too late. We'd truly love to hear your thoughts, and no, not just the polite, great video kind, though we do appreciate those too. After watching this emotional journey between a woman, her son, and a child who only had the streets to call home, what stirred inside you? Did it spark anger, sorrow, hope, or maybe regret? Perhaps you've seen a Liam in your life, Or maybe you've been him. Either way, this story isn't just fiction. It mirrors the quiet tragedies happening all around us that rarely make the headlines. So tell us, would you have made a different choice? Should she have done more? Or are we all in some way victims of hesitation? Drop a comment below and let's talk, not just about the story, but about the silent moments in life where action and compassion collide. And hey, if your heart broke a little too, don't worry. That just means it's working. Now it's your turn. Be honest, be kind, be curious. We're reading every single one.